Morning, all of you. We will continue with the history chapter, Struggle for Indian Freedom. Now, that day we had already started the chapter, and we have done about the role of Mahatma Gandhi ji in our freedom struggle, and we were having a look at some of the major mass movements which were led by the Congress under the leadership and guidance of Mahatma Gandhi. So we already had a look at the non-cooperation movement, and as I was telling you that day, that the people, the Gandhiji, he was of the view that the British were able to establish their rule in India because the Indians, we cooperated with them, and if we stop cooperating with them, then the British rule in India will come to an end. Okay, so we talked about that, and now, I also told you that this movement was withdrawn because of a violent incident at Chauri Chaura, and so though this movement it failed, but the Indians now they realize that they can oppose the British, they can stand up against the British. Okay, so as of now, let me remind you, we are doing only these mass movements in brief. Later on during the course of this chapter, we will do them in detail. Okay, now second we have here is the civil disobedience movement. Now this was also a non-violent movement, just like non-cooperation movement, and it was, we can say, a step ahead of non-cooperation movement. Now the non-cooperation movement, basically it was to be unfolded in stages. There was three stages of that, and the last stage was the civil disobedience movement. They thought that if the British will not listen to their demands, then they will launch a full-fledged civil disobedience movement. So what is different in the non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement? The thing is that in non-cooperation, it was basically not cooperating with the British, and uh, boycotting everything British, and uh, giving back the titles, the honorary titles that the British gave and all. But in a civil disobedience movement, it also meant a deliberate defying of laws, means a deliberate breaking of laws. Now, when we say breaking of laws, obviously it does not mean that you go on breaking any law, you go on killing people, all right, and you go on robbing people. No, it did not mean that. It meant breaking the colonial laws, laws which were discriminatory for the people of India, laws which did not treat the people well. All right, and so breaking those laws, and now in India, all sorts of people, all groups of people, they were unhappy with the way the Britishers were ruling. So all sections of society, they were unhappy, and but Mahatma Gandhi, he chose to break the salt law, and with that to begin the civil disobedience movement. Why? Because he could have taken any other complaint of the people to start the civil disobedience movement with. But why he chose salt tax was because now if he had taken up the problems of farmers, then only farmers would have been interested in that particular movement, or the demands of factory workers, or the demands of businessmen and all. So only that group would have been interested in this movement, and we would not have had the support of the general people here. And that is why Mahatma Gandhi ji, he took up this salt tax to break, to start the civil disobedience movement with, because salt is used by everyone, rich, poor alike, all right, it does not matter. And that is why he began the civil disobedience movement by breaking the salt law. Now, what was this salt law? Have you heard about the salt law? Yes, anyone? He undertook which march to break the salt law?
Dandi March.
Dandi March.
Okay, Dandi March. All right. And so, what was the salt law? Now, according to the salt law, the British, they had the monopoly. Monopoly means exclusive rights. Means only they can do that. So the British, they had the monopoly to produce salt and sell salt. Means no one else can do it. Only the Britishers, they were according to the law, they were allowed to make salt, produce salt, and sell salt. Now you know, for the people who live in the coastal areas, now it is very easy for them to produce, to make salt. And now they were robbing the people of a very good source of their livelihood. And then on top of that, not only were the Indians not allowed to make salt, produce salt, or sell salt, and then on top of that, the British, they also imposed tax on the salt. And so Gandhiji thought that, this showed a very cruel face, a very oppressive face of the Britishers. And so he began the civil disobedience movement by breaking laws. Like I told you, in that, what we had the deliberate breaking of laws, breaking of laws which were discriminatory, which were not right for the people. And that is why he began this movement with the breaking up of the salt law. And so, throughout the country, at many places, the people, they also broke the salt law. They stopped paying taxes, chowkidari taxes to the British. And at many places, they did not even pay the grazing tax. They stopped paying the grazing tax. Now, what was this grazing tax? Under the colonial rule, when the Britishers were ruling, they imposed taxes on each and everything. All right, so obviously to make more money for themselves. And grazing tax was also one such tax. Now, earlier in India, there had been pastoralists. Pastoralists are basically nomads which move from one place to another with their herds of cattle, sheep, donkeys, buffalo, elephants. All right, and so they move from one place to another, and they basically move according to the change in weather, like summer, winter, rainy and dry season. So depending on where they live, so they move according to that. Now earlier, these pastoralists, they were free to move along with their herds to any place where they had these pastures available for them, forage available for their cattle. But under the British rule, what happened, a grazing tax was imposed. And so what happened, that before they entered any pasture land, they had to pay taxes for each head of cattle that they owned. Each head of cattle means for every sheep and buffalo or goat that they had, for each head they had to pay taxes, and then only they were allowed to enter these pasture grounds. And so obviously, not right for the people. And so at many places, people, they also stopped paying the grazing tax. And so that was the civil disobedience movement, and obviously we'll do that in detail later on. Then we had the Royalet Satyagraha, 1919. Now, during the World War One, many laws have been imposed by the British government. Now, that was done in order to maintain public order. Now, whenever there is this war type situation, so in that, many of our freedoms, we have so many fundamental rights, right? You know about fundamental rights, we have done that earlier. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, how many fundamental rights do we have?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, six.
Six. Okay.
Ma'am,
First one is
right against freedom.
first is right to equality, means all of us are equal. Second is
Right to freedom.
right to freedom. Now, our freedoms are curbed under any emergency like situation or a war like situation. And so basically means our freedom of speech and expression, freedom of press and all, now they are limited during such times. Why? Because, if people are free to speak what they want to speak, then obviously the conditions may worsen. And so, under these situations, to maintain, or in order to maintain public order, some certain freedoms, they are restricted, they are not given to the people. And so during the World War One, a series of laws, they were imposed by the British government to maintain public order. But, even after the war was over, so obviously those freedoms should have been given back to the people. But what the British government decided, they decided to continue with these laws, continue with these measures. And this Royalet Act also, what it wanted, it tried to do, it tried to make war like restrictions permanent. All right, means what they should have done during wartime only, now they try to do it during peacetime also. Now, what was this Royalet Act? Now, according to this, any person could be imprisoned, it could be any person could be arrested without a warrant and imprisoned without a trial for a period of 2 years. Our law says that without a warrant we cannot arrest anyone. And then without a person having a trial, we cannot put a person in prison. But according to this Royalet Act, what happened, it empowered the government to arrest anyone without a warrant, put them in prison for a period of 2 years. Now basically it was targeted against the political activists, people, who raised their voices against the British rule and all. And so no, easily they did not need to have any warrant. Anyone who said anything which they did not like, okay, and they used to arrest a person and put them in prison. And so that was the Royalet Act. And Gandhiji, he launched a satyagraha protesting against this law. And so a nationwide strike was held on 6th April for this purpose. And Gandhiji, later on he was taken into custody. But this act had its more serious impact in Punjab, where the Jallianwala Bagh massacre took place. Have you heard about Jallianwala Bagh massacre?
Yes, ma'am.
All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Do
Yes,
you know
ma'am.
what happened there? Any idea?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened there,
Ma'am,
beta?
many people were killed and the gate
Many
was
people were
closed.
killed by the Britishers.
Okay. So the gate was closed and many people were killed. Now, because at that time what happened, that the people, they were protesting against this Royalet Act. And so the government has banned public meetings. You could say public meetings at that time was banned. And on this particular day, 13th April 1919, now it was also the day of Baisakhi festival. So many people have gathered in that Jallianwala Bagh just for the fair. Fair, you all know, on important festival days we also have fair. Yes, fair, you all know. FAIR, what does it mean?
Ma'am, Mela.
All right. So, they were having a fair there also, and many people from the adjoining areas, they did not know that, a curfew has been imposed and restrictions were there on public meetings. So, many people from the nearby areas, they also came to attend this Baisakhi fair. And then, many people were also protesting, peacefully protesting against this Royalet Act also. And as you know, General Dyer, he came along with the soldiers. And this Jallianwala Bagh, it had only one entry exit point, so it was closed. And then they started indiscriminately to shoot at the people. And it is said, they shot till the time all their emanations were over. And so as a result, many people were killed. And so many more were wounded. So uh, this campaign against Royalet Act, now its most severe impact was on Punjab, where this Jallianwala Bagh incident, it took place. Okay. Now, Quit India movement. Now, this Quit India movement, it was also launched under the leadership of Gandhiji in August 1942. Now, basically, why they launched the same was because they wanted to pressurize the British government to negotiate with them, to discuss, to come to a discussion with them. And now, in this Quit India movement, now there was a call for immediate independence of the Indians. Now, earlier also they have been talking about Purna Swaraj or complete independence. Now this resolution, the Purna Swaraj resolution, it was passed at the Lahore session of the Congress in 1929. And they said that 1930 onwards, 26 January, they will celebrate as the Purna Swaraj or the complete independence day. And that is why we also celebrate our Republic Day on 26th January, because of the historical importance of this particular day. And so now they have already said that we don't want to settle for anything less than complete Swaraj or complete independence or Purna Swaraj. But here under Quit India movement, it was not only that they wanted freedom, but they wanted immediate freedom, that we wanted to be free now if it was possible. Gandhiji, he even gave a speech and he said that if it was possible, I want to have freedom today itself before the sun goes down. And so so he also gave this slogan, do or die or karo ya maro, means you be ready to do everything and anything, even to the point of laying down your lives for the sake of the country. But before the movement it could be launched, all the Congress leaders, they were arrested by the British officials, and Gandhiji, he went on a fast for 21 days to demand the release of the leaders. And though his health was failing, he was not in a very good health, but still, in spite of that, he undertook a fast of 21 days so that the leaders could be released. And the British, after that, they had to release the leaders. Okay, now India independence. Now after the Quit India movement, so though we know that Quit India movement also did not bring us independence, but after this Quit India movement, the freedom struggle, it got even more intense, more passionate. Now the people, they were united together throughout the country, they were united for independence, and now they did not wanted to settle for anything less than that. And they were ready to do anything and everything, means they were ready to do or die for the sake of country. And so all the people, they contributed in whatever way they could. And even like I told you, the cry of Pune Swaraj, or complete independence, it was also raised. And after much struggle and so many sacrifices, finally we got independence on, when did we get independence?
15th August
Which year?
1947.
All right. So finally, after so many sacrifices and so many efforts, finally we got independence on 15th August 1947. Okay, so here again, let me tell you, we have done all these in brief. We will do them in detail later in the chapter. Now, ideas of Gandhiji. Now, in his autobiography, what is an autobiography? What is the difference between an autobiography and a biography? Yes, class? Do you know what is an autobiography? I think this you should know. Come on. Yes, class 8D. What is
And the
autobiography?
story of a person written by himself.
Okay, that is
I'm
autobiography.
self-written.
Self-written. So if you want to write the account of your life, all right, so that will be called as an autobiography. But if someone else writes it for you, then that would be called as a biography.
Biography.
Okay. So,
Biography.
Gandhiji, in his autobiography, he wrote that, there were so many things which influenced his personality, which influenced his thinking. And, but he says that, the greatest lessons of his life he has learned from his own actions and own experiences. And so that is why he advocated and practiced non-violent methods in the struggle for independence. Now let's see few of the ideals of Gandhiji. First is Satyagraha. Now, this was a noble method. Now, this was a very good method with Gandhiji used against British repression. And now, under this, what happens that the person who is doing Satyagraha, Satyagraha means passive resistance. You resist without retaliating, means you resist without striking back. All right. And so the person who offers satyagraha or who does satyagraha, what he does, he have, even if he has to undergo hardships and endure hardships of a hardship, that person will do, but without retaliating, means without fighting back. And so basically, these people, these satyagrahis, they also suffered imprisonment in jails. And when they all did, it raised them in the eyes of the common people as living martyrs. Who are martyrs? Who is a martyr? Any idea who is a martyr? A person who lays down his life for his belief. So here, when they suffered so much, but still they did not, like, they were being hit with lathis and all that, but still when they were hit with lathis and all, then also they did not hit back or fight back, and many times, they were imprisoned also, put and still tortured by the British, but still, they did not fight back. And so this basically, these acts, they lifted them in the eyes of the people as living martyrs. Then, second ideal, non cooperation. Now, to protest against the British injustice, Gandhiji, he adopted the method of non cooperation. Now, non cooperation, we have already talked about that, not cooperating with the British, and under this particular movement, Gandhiji asked the people to boycott British goods, British schools and colleges, and even the law courts and even British legislatures. So that was non cooperation. Then, assigning a mass character to the national movement. Now, even before Gandhiji, there had been movements, all right, or revolutions, rebellions against the British government, but they were localized, means in a particular area, all right, or in a particular state only. They were not mass based in character. Also, what that means is that not a large number of people, common people, supported it, but Gandhiji, he believed that a national movement, it should involve all the people who live in the country, so all the people of the country. And so, he worked among the poorest of the poor also, and made the national movement mass movement. He listened to them, he got to know their problems and tried to solve their problems, so that all sections of society, all the people, they will come and join this movement, making it a mass movement. Okay, so for today, that is all the time we have. I hope you have understood what we have done today. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
All right, so for today, we'll stop here.